Hello and welcome to another Pauper video. I'm Kalikaiz. Today we're doing Decks of the Week. We're going to talk about what's going on in the Magic Online metagame. What trophies were made, what does that metagame look like, also what does the challenge metagame look like, and then we're going to dive into the spiciest stuff that's happening. And you don't want to get out of here because we have a lot of really sick spice and a lot of things are changing after the release of Aetherdrift, which is really fun to see. So before we get into it, hit the like and subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you thought about this deck or this video and all the decks that I covered. And then make sure that you know that there's Patreon, sideboard guides, and there's also early access to videos on the YouTube membership page. And that's about it for that shilling stuff, but let's get into the actual content. The things that happen in the leagues. Well, we had 147 trophies, so that's even up from the last week, which is awesome to see. People are playing a lot of Pauper. I really like to see that. The most trophy deck was Mono Red, 28 trophies, 19% of the total. And then we had Black, Green Glee, and Jund Glee tied at 11 trophies for only 7.5% of the metagame. Oh, wait, that's a huge amount of the metagame. So these two decks are taking up like a ton here by themselves. If you look at the combined, I just only combined Glee combo, but it's 19%, 15%, and then we've got the next like most trophy deck at 7%, so it drops off quite hard. Glee, I think, is probably just the best thing to be doing, and a lot of people are playing Mono Red still in leagues because you can just slam through people. It's very powerful, and your best starts are better than anybody else's most of the time. Let's see. So we had Jund Wildfire, Mono Blue Terror, Mono Blue Fae, Affinity, White Weenie, Bogles, Dredge, and some new decks happening. So Black Artifact Aggro, Altertron taking a lot of trophies this week. Well, in 4 is a lot. And then we have Black Artifact Control popping up. So I'll go over those in a second here. And as I said, the combined metagame pretty much is exactly the same way it looks, but you can just see that it's 15% instead of 7.5 two times. In the challenges, so this is the challenge metagame combined from Kerblunksy, and I'll link him in the description. But Jund broodscale taking up the most percent of the meta at about 11% with a 56% non-mirror win rate, which is extremely strong. And then just below that was Kuldotha Burn with a 62% non-mirror win rate over the weekend. Very, very, very strong. And then Grixis Affinity at 60% non-mirror win rate. So these top 3 decks are just smashing people. But then the Golgari version at 47% non-mirror, not amazing. And then we have a ton of Boglers here trying to just go fast and get over the top of people. But they still did well overall. We have Altertron at 9 total pilots. It actually won a challenge, I believe, over the weekend. And then a ton of people played it on Sunday, bringing the win rate down. But 51% for Altertron is kind of wild. I'm pretty excited to see all the people picking up that Pactdoll Terror and smashing in. I don't think there's anything else too crazy. So let's check out some of these deck lists. So I tried to organize it by spiciness, but it really is more organized over here. So let's see. So the first thing is Mono Black. This is like Mono Black Artifact Control by Pactdoll. This is something that I think USP Dudes was working on, but it's basically like Golgari Gardens without the Golgari part. You've got Refurbished Familiar, Cursed Marauder as an edict effect, where you can sacrifice your own stuff for value, or Defile, Deadly Dispute, Viscer's Insight. Extract the Truth is you can choose a creature, enchantment, or planeswalker from it, and the player discards that card. So creature or enchantment from the main. Interesting. Snuff Out, Blood Fountain. It's just a control deck, looking to go long. Then we have a deck that a lot of people love to play. This is White Black Blade, but instead of playing kind of the Blade package, they're playing an Ephemerate package. Oh, no, is this not the same one? White Black by G. Montiero. Oh, okay. Never mind. So this deck is even crazier than White Black Blade because they're playing Pestilence. This is White Black mid-range Pestilence. They are just looking to accrue value over time with their like Core Skyfisher, Inspiring Overseer, Thraben Inspectors. And then they're using 4 Deadly Dispute to put a ton of cards in their hand, and then they have Raven's Crime to keep stripping your opponent's hand. I definitely lost to this. They have 3 Trespasser's Curse in the sideboard and 4 Dust to Dust. So my Altertron got wrecked by all that Duress, Curse, and Dust to Dust. So congrats on them on putting Pestilence back in the 5-0s. Very cool. Next we have a Golgari Glee. Most of the time you would say Golgari Glee is not super spicy, but this person is playing 4 Generous End and 4 Exhume in their main deck. Also playing Vines of Vastwood over Timeo's Safekeeping to try to defeat the Mirror and a Nile's Spellbomb. So their Generous End package allows them to go to just 16 lands when most people are playing 20. It feels like a bit of a risk, but it seems to work out. And you know, Glee is pretty strong. You play the broodscale, you play the Glee, your opponent dies. So that is the way it's done. It's interesting to stay in black green because the Generous End can do the same thing as the Writhing Chrysalis does in the red green black version, the Jund version, in that it's a big body that they have to deal with. Also, having some life gain elements is pretty good versus potentially like mono red. Pretty spicy deck here, which it's over on the low end, but we're seeing Persistent Petitioners get yet another trophy. So I'm excited. I'm happy to have Petitioners continuing to actually get in there and get things done. Like I said, the Winding Way puts things like Knot of the Bone and Deep Analysis into the graveyard. Really cool. So congratulations to them. Here's the Orzhov Ephemerate that I was talking about. This person is playing 2 Ephemerate, and then they have Glinthawk and Core Skyfisher. They can pick up their Refurbished Familiar a lot of times and recast it. And then they also have Hopeless Nightmare as a way of discarding your opponent's hand to try to get in and just make their life miserable. I don't see anything too crazy in the sideboard, but it looks like the Tithing Blades have made it into the sideboard from the main deck. It's just not really super good in the a format with a bunch of Eldrazi spawns lying around. So getting spicier, right? We've got Mickey Baron playing a Grixis Control. We saw Grixis Control last week. This is 4 Shambling Gas to gum up the ground, 4 Sneaky Snacker as just recursive threats, and 3 Murmuring Mystic to just eventually take over the game. No campfires in the main deck, 2 campfires in the sideboard, and they've got 7 removal spells, Cleansing Wildfire, Counterspell, Deadly Dispute, Assertor's Insight, and Last Rites in the main deck. It looks to be a pretty strong deck. So if you like playing Grixis Control, it seems to be a real deck now. Really cool. We have a black, red, green. This is Jund Gardens essentially, but the spicy thing here is they're playing Seize the Storm, which you wouldn't expect, but 5 mana for a giant creature is pretty good. And then your opponent has to bring in Graveyard Hate versus you, and Graveyard Hate basically doesn't matter versus you. So it's just like a control deck that can either win through your Avenging Hunter or eventually just cast a couple Seize the Storms and slap. I like that a lot. Fun times. I wouldn't be able to actually pilot this. It would be too grindy for me. And now we have another Grixis Control by Respectable Jawa. They're playing kind of the same package as the Dimir Snacker, where they have 4 Sneaky Snacker and 2 Spellstutter Sprites. Sort of to keep you guessing, it seems. But once a Snacker's in play, Spellstutter Sprite can counter a 2-drop. And then they're playing a Scred, Cast Down, Counterspell, Snuff Out, Campfire to loop. And then the interesting thing specifically in this list is Kami of Jealous Thirst. It's 2 and a black. It says it's a 1/3 Death Touch. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life for 4 and a black to activate. But the ability costs 4 and a black less to activate if you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, and you can activate it only once each turn. But you know what draws 3 cards every turn? Deadly Dispute. And they also have Brainstorm. So it seems pretty easy to just get those pecks at your opponent and stay alive. So that's a really interesting way to play the game. I didn't ever expect Kami of Jealous Thirst to ever make a 5-0, but I think this person might be the first person to ever have done that. So congrats to Respectable Java. Highly respectable. And now we enter the spiciest decks of the week. We got 4 here. First is Kiln Fiend by Intellectual. So Intellectual, very strong player. This is a red-black version of Kiln Fiend. So their main threats are Kiln Fiend and Festival Crasher. You're just going to do the thing, you Temur Battle Rage your creature, and your opponent dies. They're playing 4 Snuff Out in the main deck. I guess they really felt like Glee was a bad matchup, but you can also use Snuff Out as a free spell to pump your Kiln Fiend, potentially. And you could Snuff Out your own Kiln Fiend and then give it protection with Apostle's Blessing, which would also be pretty silly. They have a mana base of Maestro's Theater and Shattered Landscape to fetch out the swamps. Sideboard has Duresses, that makes sense. And the Festivities, Spellbomb. That's pretty cool. But then later in the week, red-green Kiln Fiend. So they were just crushing people with their hot dogs, as people like to say. I like to call this deck Blitz or Kiln Fiend. Hot dogs just sounds weird. Like, I'm not going to eat this deck. But we have Festival Crasher and Kiln Fiend again. Instead of the Gurmag Angler, now Hooting Mandrills. And it looks like green is now for Snakeskin Veil as a way. Also, you can cast the Mutagenic Growth, potentially hard cast it. Not really any removal. Sideboard, they have 4 green for 4 Healer of the Glade. When it enters, you gain 3 life. Okay, so it's a 1/2 gain 3. Anti-Lightning Bolt. And then we have Gaia's Gift. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains Reach, Trample, Hexproof, and Indestructible until end of turn. So it's kind of like the Snakeskin Veil, but it gives it Trample. So that could be pretty good for getting through. They have Crackling Cyclops in the sideboard. Just a slightly larger version of Kiln Fiend for 1 extra mana. Instead of being a 1/2, it's an 0/4, but strong as well. It's just cool to see some experimentation with the Kiln Fiend archetype. Now the last 2 decks are by Sesta. Sesta has been really pushing this archetype, the mono black artifact aggro. So the idea of this deck is you're going to kill your opponent with Glaze Fiend or Pactdoll Terror with a bunch of triggers. They've got 4 Duress in the main deck. They're playing 4 Deadly Dispute and 4 Fanatical Offering over Eviscerator's Insight because these things create extra artifacts, giving you more triggers. So Glaze Fiend says whenever another artifact enters the battlefield, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Well, it enters under your control. Things like just making a land drop, Deadly Disputing for a treasure token, using Blood Fountain. It stacks up quite quickly and it can be very aggressive. And then if you can get multiple of these or the Pactdoll Terror in play, you're going to just smash your opponent. Yeah, pretty cool. Also Snuff Out in the main deck. And so 4 free removal spells with Snuff Out and Spinning Darkness. And then they have Cast Down as another removal spell to get through. And then in the next deck that they played was basically the same thing. But instead of the Glaze Fiend, here they're playing Mirror Enforcer. So Pactdoll Terror, Reefer, Mirror Enforcer. Almost exactly the same main deck, except they are now splashing blue for Thoughtcast. And it's kind of crazy to think, oh, I'm splashing blue, but they're splashing blue for Thoughtcast, Blue Blast, and Negate. So it was really interesting to see the development of this over time. Pactdoll Terror is just a house in this format. It's really exciting to see all the different changes with the Dimir affinities. So hopefully you're excited to play some Pauper like I am, and we see some more spicy stuff in the future. If there was anything I missed, let me know, and I will see you in the next video.